Yo, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, man.
What's up, bro? It's an honor, man.
How's it going?
Chilling, man. So you essentially, I attribute you to saving Tompkins, essentially, right?
Yeah, it was definitely like a big part in like making it visible and like sort of organizing it so that it sort of had like a voice, you know?
Because when they decided that they were gonna shut that shit down or put it with turf and stuff, what was the budget like?
It was like $1.45 billion. How did you initially like fight against that?
That budget's for like the entire renovation of the East River Park. So basically, the reason why they were planning on putting turf at Tompkins is because of this like massive plan to like for flooding, flood prevention.
Yeah.
On the East River. So basically, that budget you mentioned, that was for like the entire like reconstruction, flood prevention on the park. And there was a lot of like organizations that were against that and protesting that. So that was already like a little thing going on that I'd sort of heard about. I wasn't like totally involved in it. I actually had a friend, Fanny, who was like telling me about it and like going to the meetings and stuff, right? So because of the plan to close down a lot of that green space, like in the park on the East River, that's why they had to like add like turf in like random spots temporarily to basically, prioritize like league sports and like permitted activities that I think it's something like they had to have like a certain amount of green space for people from that neighborhood.
Do you think the point was, well, one of the points in mind was to essentially drive out the skateboarders, or that was just a byproduct?
So basically, the city claims that it was in no way like malicious like towards the skaters, but of course it also did not acknowledge or like keep the skaters in mind at all. Like the city had approached all the softball teams and like hockey teams that had permits to like be at Tompkins to like relocate them, but of course like the skaters were not even in the conversation at all. So basically, that's basically why they were planning on putting the turf there, and also a bunch of other locations. But it basically made no sense because it's like a temporary solution that's gonna like evict like a decades old like tradition of skateboarding in this area, and it's obviously not like a replaceable piece of turf, So
when did you first hear about it?
So
the Tompkins thing in specific.
So basically, I first heard about it because my friend Fanny Cohen was like going to the meetings about the East River Park, and that was like a big deal in the Lower East Side community because basically everyone agrees that the East River needs flood prevention, but it was basically like the plans to go about doing it weren't like approved by the community, and basically, I think I could be not exact on the details, but basically there was apparently a plan that the community approved, and then all of a sudden the budget jumped to like that number you said, like over $1 billion, and there was a lot of shady shit involved, like where that budget was coming from and sort of whose interests were like they serving, and rather than a plan which would like kind of work with the community, it really seemed to prioritize some other interests, and basically would mean just really fuck over the entire like housing projects and like residents like along the river who like need that space. So wait, what was the question again?
yeah just when did you initially find out about the Tompkins thing? So
basically, because Fanny had been going to the meetings, they had basically slipped into, it was like just like already approved by the point I heard it, and it was like a footnote at like a much larger like plan, So basically, like if no one had been at these meetings like paying attention to like what they're approving and shit, like we might have never even realized until they had just put it there. So basically, finally we find like this plan, and at first it was kind of like, is this real? Is it not real? We found that we got Fanny like gave us started to circulate this screenshot, which basically stated that part of the plan was to put the AstroTurf there. And that was probably like, what was the time frame? It was probably like spring, maybe. I don't remember exactly the time frame, but basically that started circulating around. So people started to like know that this was kind of an issue. And but you know, when things like that happen, it's just like, we don't know if it's even real, this screenshot. Like, people didn't know what to do about it. It's like a bunch of people can share it, but what's that really gonna do, you know?
Yeah.
So basically, after, I think we were aware of it for like a little bit, and then at one point, me, Costa from Quarter Snacks, and EJ, who does Hard Body, I feel like someone else might have been there. Maybe Zach Baker was there. I don't know. But either way, we basically met up in we're actually at Mogador, like down the street from Tompkins, and we basically got together and we're like, yo, what can we do about this? Like, what, you know, everyone's kind of sharing this screenshot. We hear this plan has already been approved by the city. Like, we have to figure out how to basically not let this happen, because obviously Tompkins like means so much to all of us, and it's kind of like the stomping grounds, the meeting point. You know, I could basically attribute like everyone I've met, everything that's happened to me kind of stems from the community that I like met at Tompkins. So, and it's still happening, like generations, you know, to come, like the kids that are like me, like, are like skaters or, you know, outcasts or whatever. Tompkins seems to be a place that people can sort of find their space and community. So obviously, like, just the idea of turf and like mixed with gentrification and everything, it just kind of felt like, all right, this will be the nail in the coffin for like the East Village. You know, there's no skate, like Autumn is gone, the skate shops are gone, 12th and A is gone. So like skaters are like part of the fabric of the community there. But if Tompkins is gone, it's basically like there's no reason for skaters to be in the East Village. Like, might as well let gentrifiers and like frat kids take it over. So basically, when we met that day, we all agreed we had to do something about it, and I came up with the idea to make a hashtag. And you know, we kind of like went back and forth on like what it should be. Like, should it be Save the TF, Save Tom, you know? And I was just like, I think Save Tompkins is like the most straightforward, easy thing. Even though we're not saving the whole part, but like it was just like as a hashtag, I felt it worked. So I was like, all right, so I'm gonna make this hashtag Save Tompkins. So I'm gonna like, people had shared the screenshot of the plan, sort of like, oh no, but no one had really fully addressed it. So I basically made a post with some like some of my favorite photos from Tompkins of just like friends in there skating, and I just explained the situation clearly, and basically said, you know, if Tompkins means what it means to me, to you, or if you'd like to share a story or like a thought, or, you know, contribute to the conversation of why this park is important and why we need to preserve it, then I encourage you to share something and use this hashtag Save Tompkins to like basically, you know, make some noise about why this place is important, you know? So I did that, and as soon, you know, people sometimes ask me if I'm surprised by the reaction, but it's like Tompkins is so meaningful to so many people, and like even culturally relevant, like worldwide. So immediately, like the response was just like boom, like everyone started posting. The hashtag went super viral, I think like if you grew up in New York City, it's hard to have not had an experience at Tompkins that means something. So and also if you grew up here, you know that the skaters are an important part, and that putting turf there would just fuck everything up. So once that started like going crazy, everyone was like, "Yo, where's the petition? Where's the petition?" So as soon as it started hitting viral, I was like, "Oh fuck, I got to make a petition." So I like just did it like quick on not GoFundMe, but whatever the petition site is.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it, and basically along with the hashtag, I was like also sharing this petition. And once I shared the petition and people could see how many people actually cared, it just went even more viral. And we got like people sending in videos, like pro skaters, artists, musicians.
And then it's over once they start doing that shit. Once it's like mad pros and artists.
Exactly. Brands, So like let's name a few like random people too, like Bam Margera and like fucking Chloe Sevigny and like.
I mean, the reach is definitely wide because what's her face, like that Kardashian, she like went there to essentially take a picture for the gram.
Right.
It's more than just
Kendall Jenner was there.
Like you said, it's like a culturally significant thing around the world, not even just in New York.
Yeah, like the amount of things that have come from there, from style to like film to just the history and heritage of it, whether it's like that's like in skating or hardcore, all these sort of just like amazing basically what gives the East Village its cultural identity, like the heart of it is in Tompkins. And especially with gentrification, the last remaining heart of it is definitely Tompkins. So
No, I was gonna say it's amazing what you guys did, because essentially you're just throwing pebbles at like this iron giant, which is gentrification. Because at the end of the day, it's always a losing battle, especially right now. Because like I work in the construction business, and I see these buildings being put up like within a month's notice, and they take down like mom and pop stores. Like in my neighborhood in Bensonhurst, they take down the diners. Like people wake up every morning and they look forward to just having a meal. Like that's what they value every day. And boom, like before you know it, it's gone. And right now it's an empty lot. Like for what, bro? It's been an empty lot for like a year. That old person, like he couldn't. What if he passed away recently? Like, he could enjoy like a simple breakfast. That would have been like the meaning of life to him.
Exactly. and I think the importance of that neighborhood. And for me, like I don't live in the East Village anymore. Like I grew up on 12th Street, but I live in Chinatown now. But the East Village is still like my hometown basically. So I mean, it's all the Lower East Side basically. So it's not a huge difference, but. The East Village is particularly gentrified, so like I wouldn't even have any reason to go there if Tompkins wasn't there. So that's why this was like extra important, And it was like it was amazing to see the response, like the amount of brands, celebrities, like like I think Spitfire shared it, Supreme shared it, like tons of brands, pros, people reached out, and basically all that noise like. Obviously made an impact. We even got like some news coverage from like.
I seen you in New York Times. It was an article about that.
There was a New York Times article, New York One. I think New York like it was basically like in all the local papers and local news media. But
even then, dude, because to be honest with you, when I first saw that post about it closing or that they essentially closed, and that they had already decided it.
Yeah.
To be real, I was like, it's a dub.
Yeah,
bro, it's Manhattan.
They already said yes. Like you could get 1 million petitions.
Exactly.
What does that do for them when they have this plan backed by a bunch of money? That's why for me, it's really powerful, bro. Like I know you've probably talked about it mad times, but I really do want to emphasize like it's powerful that just with the phone in your hand, you can have so much leverage. Get mad people. You post this one thing, and so many heads see it, and you legitimately stopped a city's plan. Well, not you as a solo person, but this movement that essentially was created by you and your friends.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing to see for sure, and it is true to see the power of social media to see how many people we could connect with, how many people cared about this. It's definitely really powerful. And I think, like, especially with what you're saying, like with gentrification being a losing battle, like that's why this story is particularly like powerful, just because it felt good to have that one victory, you know.
And it's not like it's just any city or just a little town, bro. It's Manhattan. Like this, like you know, it can't get crazier than that. Like making a change in that, it gives hope.
Totally.
You know, to future things like this taking
so
place.
Basically, like, and when we got that first wave of news coverage, like, it's not like anything happened right away. Like, to me and like a lot of people, it was still, you know, we know how this shit goes. Like, we weren't. If you asked me then, I wouldn't say I was like super optimistic that we would make a difference. Like, I just knew we had to try, you know. So, basically, like, after that first round of news media, like people speaking up, nothing really happened. But then we ended up getting in contact with the city. So finally, after like all that, mind you, like obviously if we hadn't done that, they would not have considered keeping the skateboard or like even addressing us as a community. So that was a victory in itself, just to from the noise, like get an acknowledgement from the city. So basically they asked to meet. So we met with some city officials in the basement of the Tompkins Square Library, which was like pretty, like, we were like, oh shit, this is happening. Like we might actually make this happen. So it was like me, Costa, EJ, who else was there? Steve Rodriguez, who's like been involved with saving the banks and stuff. So he had a relationship with the city. So he was already like the guy that we just knew that he has a relationship with the city. Like, let's get Steve involved. So basically me, Steve, Costa, then we got like, we wanted to like represent Tompkins. So we like got like the little homie, like King there. I think Alexis Sablone was there just to like show that it was an important space for girls too.
King went? That's so, did he talk?
He did.
So fresh.
It's actually, I think somebody has the recording of it, but yeah, it was literally us sitting in this, and Costa was like, you know, made the point that like, for example, the Quarter Snacks book is all about Tompkins, and he's just saying like, look, this book is sold in the MoMA, like this shit means something like culturally to the world.
It's hard because you're explaining this to people who have they're like, yo, it's a go to another parking lot, or you know what I mean?
No, exactly, which was actually sort of their attitude, or even they claim that they didn't realize the significance of it to skaters. They even, one representative I remember was like apologized and said that they were planning on reaching out to the skate community, which we were all just like, bullshit, like you had no plan to like reach, like to who you gonna, like, you're gonna go into the park and like be like, hey yo, like we're gonna put some turf here. So we all knew that was bullshit, but basically, you know, there was also this one guy, I forgot his name. He seemed like the head honcho of that meeting, and he had been involved coincidentally in the first contest ever at Tompkins, which was in like 1989. There's still like some epic like documentation of it. It was like big wall ride and like some really cool shit. So he sort of like claimed that he understood the importance of skating and like understood its roots and like history in Tompkins. The date might be wrong. I think it was 1989. But anyways, like basically we made our case, you know, we all said our piece, you know, King over here being like, I met all my friends like here, like, you know, I learned how to kickflip here. And same with me. Like I was like, yeah, I met, like I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't have had sponsors or like worked at Supreme or like done shit or met people like if it wasn't for this community that is nurtured by this space. And you can't just pick it up and move it somewhere else. It's not gonna work. And we emphasize that as well, just that this is not like a matter of like there's a reason we're in that square. Like there's another basketball court right on the other side of the park, you know?
Yeah.
It's like no one skates there. It's just not the place to skate, you know?
Or also the argument could be, why don't you just turf that one then?
Yeah, exactly.
If we can replace anywhere we go, why can't you do the same?
So, you know, we tried to, and during the, you know, we figured perhaps there would have to be some sort of compromise. We were like, at least turf the back area.
That would still be
You
so ass.
know what I mean? Exactly. So we were like, look, there's just this one little spot that the floor is extra smooth, like that it means something to skaters around the world, you know? And culturally it's significant. So basically we made our case and we left that meeting feeling pretty optimistic, actually. We're like, yo, I think maybe that was it. Maybe we made it happen, you know? And I remember like even leaving the librarians, we're like, we're on your side, like, which was like dope. We were like, see, the whole fucking neighborhood, you know, anyone who was like a real East Village head was on our side, you know. No one, like local businesses, like non-skaters, weirdos, punks, fucking squatters, like everyone was on our side. Like no one wanted to see, you know, some people laying on turf, like having a picnic, you know.
It even just looks bad.
Yeah, not to mention, like, I was like, yo, you know, you drive out the skaters, you don't drive out the junkies, you don't drive out the like squatters. Actually, as a matter of fact, what you're gonna see is that without the skaters and like some heart of community in that area, like, what's gonna happen when like you're done with your softball game and like it's dark out?
People are gonna.
What's gonna be in that turf area? Like, you know what I mean? Some needles in the grass. Yeah, like.
Yeah, needles in that grass, bro.
Exactly. I'm like, it's not gonna look good. For sure.
Well, it's amazing that you did something about it, man. Because you know what's funny? This is probably like 8 years ago. I walked into Tompkins. There's no way in hell you remember this, but you were wearing these socks and it said like "fucked" on it, and I thought that it was a fucked D30.
Oh shit.
So I was like, I didn't know who you were, and I was just like, yo, that's like fuck D30. And then you were like, nah, it's like my it's like this clothing brand or something. And I was like, oh word. But I was like, nah, that's fuck D30. He just doesn't know. Like, it's fuck D30. Later to find out that like that's a clothing brand.
Right.
And you've been skating this since you were 12 years old.
Yeah, definitely, or maybe even earlier than that. But yeah, since I was like, I mean, I grew up playing in the park, like, you know, so all my friends are from that area. And yeah, I've been skating there since I was like, that's where I learned how to skate, basically. So
was that one of the first actual spots that you would skate?
Yeah, definitely. First place I like tried to roll around and like do an ollie was like at Tompkins.
How have you seen? Because that's like I feel like for me the lower is the heart of gentrification right now. How have you seen it change as the years have gone by? You're like, I guess in some weird way you could say like a constant that has been there like before, during, afterwards, you know, for what, during your lifetime? Well,
during my lifetime, you know, gentrification, like my view on it is not like purely pessimistic. Like, you know, the city's always changing and many would consider the East Village gentrified even like the moment I was born, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so it's always gentrifying and it's always like changing. But the East Village has lost a lot. That's for sure. Like, the real East Village is like the people who fought for squatters' rights and like the weird worldly Hare Krishna, like weed smoker, you know, bohemian fucking weird, you know, families and like just like punks and skaters and musicians and poets. And I mean, it's not like I had a perfectly romanticized version of that like when I was growing up, but you know, I would definitely say like even like the music scene, or like I remember when I was like 13, like there was like little DIY like punk shows or like poetry readings and like the back of cafes and shit. And
I mean,
like,
that period, like CBGB was probably still open.
It was still open then, yeah.
And then those fools would go to Tompkins after. There's like a huge, like you said, Hare Krishna scene where they give food and they do their chants and like this whole thing that just essentially, I wouldn't go as far as to say that it doesn't exist, because like there's this dude Artie who does like he's like not a hard Christian, but there's like mad of them that do that with him. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, give away food there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like it's definitely a fixture in the neighborhood, like, and you see a lot of people that are influenced by that sort of worldly, sort of spiritual vibe in the East Village, mixed with like punk, hardcore, the heritage there. And there's a lot of culture there, you know, to like the Puerto Rican and Dominican community there as well, like how much they've impacted and made a footprint on the Lower East Side. And, you know, so there's a lot of culture that's really sacred in the East Village. And, yeah, man, it's for like over the last 10 years, it's like, it's really pretty heartbreaking. I think, obviously like students is a big thing. A lot of NYU kids moving in definitely raises the price in the neighborhood, definitely like changes the identity of the neighborhood a bit. And even like the block I grew up on, 12th Street, like I saw dorm rooms sprout out from the ground like as I was growing up. And yeah, I remember like one of like the most tragic things to see for me is just like this weird like bro vibe, like frat kids and like NYU kids that are like transplants that, you know, just have a horrible energy, like make the East Village like weird frat club or some shit and have their bars and shit.
And as the years go by, that shit just increases.
Yeah, it's just getting worse and worse. So
it's one thing, like, you know, like NYU kids and the youth sprouting up, but it depends who the youth is. Like you said, exactly, if it's like the bros, they're not a part of these subcultures. They're not a part of any of those things. Yeah. So they don't keep it alive. They're not going to be the ones skating or writing or making music. They're kind of just like, it's almost like, no offense to any fucking frat kid, but like, it's like, you like waste, like it doesn't really bring like life to the community.
Big offense to the frat kids.
It's almost like a joke, you know, like because the East Village in particular is one of those neighborhoods that has this culture that is not easily emulated in any other city. You can't go to Boston or you can't go to even Philly and have the same kind of thing. There's this own specific culture that took a lifetime to build up, and a lifetime of history and very significant figures. And just like from artists to bands playing out of there to like events that have gone down in that park in particular, all for it to fucking go to shambles. And the worst part is that like, let's say the frat kids who are moving in, it's not as if they have this intent of like, it's just like there's just so many of them doing the same thing that it's like essentially with almost no effort from on their end, just destroying this lifetime of culture, you know?
No, it's a good way to put it, because it's really like they're completely unaware, you know?
Yeah.
There's like decently nice tenement apartment buildings all around. They don't know that it used to be a squat. They don't know that they like outbid, you know what I mean? Like that's somebody who had been rent controlled for years. They didn't know that fucking Basquiat lived in that building, that fucking, you know what I mean? Like that
John Joseph fucking ate like dog piss to stay alive in that building. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot there to unpack that, you know, and this shit happens, you know, it's kind of the way the world goes, I guess. But, I'm not like, I don't have like huge hopes that the East Village will like revive itself or some shit. But, it's not dead. It's definitely not dead. You know, I can see that with like the youth and shit. And even like, you know, when I go to Tompkins, you know, I thought that, you know, shit is getting more and more tame and like kids are getting less and less weird. But it's not the case, man. The youth is still there. They're still fucking, you know, finding their space in their community. Just like I did, just like the generation before me did, you know? So that's kind of what gives me hope. And hopefully, like, we can see, and, you know, even the victory with Tompkins, like, see more official people, like, kind of give the respect that it deserves to, like, the culture that's there, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, to be honest, when you're talking about the youth, the idea that the youth is getting less weird or more tamed and shit like that, Not even just because you're here and you work at Supreme or nothing like that, but on some real shit, that company, you know, they get a lot of hate.
Mm-hmm.
They also get a lot of love. But one thing I that they do that other companies don't is there's this like importance of history that has come before you, that since Supreme's like the cool thing, these little kids see that, and unbeknownst to them are picking up on history, like whether it be like collabs with like Dead Kennedys, which will open up a kid's mind to like, oh, this is like actually cool. It's not just some like skinny jean shit or whatever, or like doing a collab with a random ass artist that maybe they never heard of, then they get opened up to that world. Like even just like hints at like graffiti culture with like Gore-Tex, or like shit with Dondi, shit with JA, like it gives a little kid, or it's just someone coming up who is no longer part of this era where all this shit took place, a moment where they can go back and learn about it.
Yeah, man. And that's part of what the argument was towards the city too, was like, yo, Tompkins is where, you know what I mean, like where the cultural weird kids are that are into like shit like that, you know? That's where some like a company like Supreme is looking more towards like, oh, this is like the future of like future employees, future team skaters, you know? Not necessarily at LES. Like these spaces have a different identities.
No,
you know?
Absolutely.
And I think that it's exactly like you said, like the sort of being able to pick up on these cultural references and like understanding history is a big part of like what differentiates the types of kids that hang out at Tompkins and the kids that hang out in other spaces, you know? So it's like, but yeah, you know, it's definitely important for kids to understand that heritage. And yeah, like you said, Supreme, you know, without speaking on it too much, like they do, that is definitely something positive, I think. That
they play a big part in bringing it.
They reference or, you know, work with a lot of artists that, you know, in a sense, you know, people have their different stances on it, but definitely it revitalizes their places, like some height or some elevates those things for a new audience, like kids that wouldn't otherwise like know about Ram LC, you know, or some shit. Yeah,
of course. How has your experience been working there? You've probably seen some bugged out shit, I can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it's been an amazing working there. Like I've been there for 3 years. I've had a relationship with them like since I started skating, sort of just like being a kid, like going to the shop, you know, getting like a free hat from Charles or Ty or something like that. But opening up the Brooklyn store has been, it's been pretty wild and quite I don't know how to put it, but like in the beginning it was super intense, but now it's super chill, you know, like.
Does it get the same amount of lines that the Manhattan store does?
That's the nice thing about our store is like we don't deal with quite as much regular foot traffic. We get lines when we have drops. Otherwise, like, you know, like Bowery has lines no matter what, just because there's so much tourism and foot traffic in Soho. So we basically get to, you know, we don't get as much in Williamsburg. So it's
cool too, because with that Bowery shop, essentially that next is there to stay until. But even before then, they were kind of planning on. But people would diss it. That's the crazy part.
People would diss it, and mad people would fix it. Yeah, I actually was talking to somebody about it, and I was just like, I wonder if any of it is still the original paint. You know what I mean? Like, so many people have fixed it over the years. So many idiots have like gone over it.
But usually, it's the times I've seen it diss, it's people who they don't. It's not like I'm gonna diss this.
No, they don't know. It's literally people who don't know. It's like some dumb Soho street artist or like some.
It'll just be some dumb shit. They have no idea. There used to be a huge curse on the building across the street on the top. Yeah. Dude, that thing was so dope, man.
Yeah, now across the street is like Vandal or some shit. I saw somebody like posted them like buffing like some like tag from their venue, and it was just mad funny and ironic.
Yo, we had RD on the show, and he hit it like with the fattest cap tag ever, and they caught him on camera. He was like, I was holding my dick, just like hitting it up, and I think I don't remember. It was a minute ago we had that conversation.
He was like, yo, let me get that footage, please.
Yo, they like came to his crib and shit. They like prosecuted him for that, and you name your store Vandal, and you got like hand styles as your. So whack, yo.
Pathetic, man.
No, but what, I can relate the next thing to, like, for example, saving Tompkins. It's like the same thing because once again, it's like a fight against gentrification, fight against having these like uniform buildings with no life, and having that next alive. Like it's not to a regular person, it's just graffiti. Take that shit off. It looks stupid, but it's like life. It has a soul. It's like the life of the city.
It's an example of like how deep this shit goes. How much that can mean to somebody, and how vapid and ignorant some people are that come into these neighborhoods and think that they can,
That's one of those things with like skateboarding, like you know your history.
Yeah, and also something that comes along with that, there's a certain like localism, there's certain like, pride. So, 100%. That's in graffiti, that's where beefs happen, and skating, like, same thing.
Like, just like you shouldn't come into a neighborhood and just go over like the legend king of that neighborhood. You shouldn't come into a neighborhood and just like completely have disregard to everybody who's been there before you.
Yeah.
I understand that things can't stay the same. Like, if it wasn't this, it would be that. Like, things can't stay the same, but there is a certain way that you should go about things.
Yeah, totally.
In like some sort of respectful manner. Have you ever thought about moving out of New York?
No, I mean, I know my roots will always be in New York. Yeah, like one day, maybe it'd be cool to I definitely love traveling. I want to travel a lot, but I think New York will obviously always be my home. Whether or not in my life, like, I'll live somewhere else for a few years, like, probably would love to.
Because I know people who've been here since the start. Like, I'm talking, never have moved out, even for, like, a few years. Like, my homie Michael Elijah, there was a minute ago when he went to Japan, he went to, like, Puerto Rico, Mexico City. He was over it. Like, I remember talking to him, and he was so over it.
Yeah,
and
he was over it, yeah.
He's over it. And it's, like, sometimes he's over it, sometimes he's not. So I like to hear, like...
I mean, there's always the conversation of, like, is New York dead? Is New York dead? I mean, it's kind of like... That's sort of, my opinion is like, it's never dead. And like, it's really easy to feel out of the loop and feel like it's dead or feel like things have changed. But the youth are always going to be up to something, you know what I mean? And, yeah, I mean, speaking of that, like, yeah, it's just like... There's always going to be... The energy doesn't go away, Like, there's always going to be the sort of counterculture or, like, rebellious energy. And that's why we need spaces like Tompkins that can be a home for that type of, Yeah,
well, without Tompkins, it kind of becomes like... I was talking to Ted Barrow about this. If he thought that New York was like becoming a skate park city, because they're popping up parks left and right.
I mean that's definitely something that I've have an opinion on as well. Is like in just like 10 years, how many parks have come up? Like, I don't know. Like, when I was growing up skating, there really was just LES before it was renovated, which was like basically a piece of shit. Like, there was some like stuff, but
and they had like horse manure in the back.
Yeah, you'd leave like with like all your shit blackened, and you were under a bridge. It was it was pretty sketchy. And the banks, which was also fucking sketchy. And then there was like, honestly, like there was Owl's Head, like way deep in Brooklyn.
Bay Ridge.
Yeah, and then there's like Mullally in the Bronx, super sketchy. Like, definitely gonna get robbed or some shit if you go there. And yeah, there wasn't shit. And I think that really at a certain era, like, really unified New York skating community, like in the East Village, like in Tompkins at 12th and A. And that was like, I was lucky enough to like sort of catch the end breath of like that era of skating in New York, just like before all the skate parks, like still more about skating street and skating at Tompkins, or so it was, to me, that was like the end of like a certain era of New York skating. Was just like, if I had to put a year on it, I would say like 2008 to 10 was still like, before then was like pretty much in the era of like 2000 street skating, like. But yeah, after that, things definitely changed a lot with mad new skate parks and shit.
even when they build new buildings now, some of them most of them they'll straight up build them already skate stopped.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that throughout all the years of skateboarding being filmed in the streets of New York, from like, you know, like that Death Bowl to downtown where they have crazy old footage of people skating to like just like the lyric videos, the bronze videos, and all these videos. It's like a thing, like summer trip to New York, and then kids are always coming here and filming in the street regardless, even if it could be like that triangle mani pad, which in another city straight up wouldn't be a spot.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it becomes like a cool thing and someone will come and do some hectic shit on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, it's funny that you bring that up because it's like Astor Place is a great example of like, what the fuck is the significance of this curb? You know? And why is it that people are drawn here? And there's many like reasons, but ultimately it's like heritage, like history, culture, like space, location. There's many reasons, but why people gravitate towards certain places. And you can't exactly be like, oh, like, why don't you just skate that curb? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, but nah, like Astor Place.
Especially to the little kid who's being influenced. Like when I was super, super, super young and I watched like New York mixtape, I see like Kim Cardona just doing boned ass ollies at Astor Place. I'm like, sick, dude. That's like a plaza.
Yeah.
But it's not. No. But in my mind it is. So I go there and I'm like, it's kind of all different now, but like cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just like tell like, oh, but go pretend. Well, then at that point, I don't even have to. I could be somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just goes to show that these spaces hold some more depth than like what meets the eye, you know?
How do you feel in terms of like what's going on right now? Because we keep speaking about gentrification, but you know, I forgot what the number was, but like tens of thousands of people are moving out of the city that aren't from here. You know what I mean? Do you think that these subcultures in a way are gaining more life again because the city's becoming like rugged and raw, let's say like back in the days? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to think about with every like this mass exodus of like New York City meets like pandemic. You know, it's definitely gonna make an impact on culture and shit, and maybe it might be positive, you know? Like, I think we'll see a lot of space. Maybe things will be a little more affordable. We'll see a lot of spaces popping up. All that with the difficulty of dealing with COVID regulations right now maybe is suffocating it, or the possibility for it to grow right now. But, you know, maybe down the line we're going to see, like a lot of these subcultures re-emerging. And even, like, the winter's been a little different just because it's been hard to like be out, but definitely started to see it in the summertime. You know, like there's no bars, clubs, like exclusive parties to go to. You know, and it made everyone just like hang out and party in the park, like hang out on the East River, and that definitely, like we would have like, you know, play music out of a car, and like people would just like be there, and that was definitely an old school vibe, I would say. Like,
it's dope.
Yeah. It definitely, you know, it's we're in the streets, like we're just in the park. Like it leveled the playing field. Like everyone was welcome. And something interesting too that happens is like, for example, like kids that wouldn't be able to even like get in the club or like to the bar, or, like to the shit that we're at. Now we're all just like sitting in Tompkins, you know, like, and there's more of like this melting pot of different types of people. Like you got your people that would normally be at some like exclusive elite shit, meets like the kids that would be on the bench, meets like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just.
Or it could be like you speak about how Tompkins was like a safe haven. You know? A lot of the youth, they can be misguided, and if they don't have like a sense of community, they can start doing other shit.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
would like downgrade their life or be like very bad for them.
Yeah.
You know? So skating in a way brings and pretty much saving kids' lives in a way.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point we made to the city, which was like, yo, give skateboarding the respect it deserves. Like we've seen like these kids that feel outcasted or feel like they don't have a place or space, they find their community through skating. It's not like you start skating, you throw like these kids that maybe would have gone into drugs, would have gone into gangs, like God knows what. Like skating is a positive force, it's not negative, you know? And like the people that have been through it can attest to that. But people from the outside might just like look at skaters as like degenerates and shit.
Yeah,
you look dirty.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like why, for example, we weren't addressed as being part of like the community of the park, you know? Like the baseball teams and shit were, but we weren't because of what? We're not like valued members of the community.
Because they might see skating as the drugs, as the
Exactly.
gangs, you know.
In their mind, it's the same thing.
Yeah, in their mind, it's the same thing, and that's what made it really apparent. Was just like, yo, that you view it all the same, but actually skating is like a really positive force, and you take that out of the equation, you're not gonna solve your junkie problem. You're not gonna solve like a lot of the other bullshit that's gonna happen. Actually, you're gonna take away something that's like really positive for, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What would you be doing if it wasn't for skating?
Yeah, exactly. Like if I wasn't skating, shit, I don't know.
So I know you're into like a bunch of art stuff. Like you make videos, you make like different like different paintings. I see on your gram the shit you do in like your backyard thing. Like you'll do random like straight letters or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I do. Like for me, like if Tompkins wasn't there, like would I even? Like, I've always been artistically inclined, like, since I was a kid. So, yeah, I probably would be doing art, but it's so informed by, like, my community, by, like, the people I'm... So, even that, like, it's not like if I wasn't skating, I would be, like, doing some of the same art. Like, nah, I wouldn't know the community that inspired me to, like, make some of that shit, you know? So,
it's straight up an avenue to find out about so much shit.
Yeah, and that's why Tompkins is different than, like, LES. Because at Tompkins, I'm going to, like, learn about, like, punk and, like, graffiti and, like, artists and sort of that sort of heritage. And that's what makes it really a special place. It's, like, and it doesn't have that sort of, like, competitive, like, macho energy. It's, like, very much, like, the weird kids, like, the fucking artistic kids, you know?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I know you went to Shanghai and you were, like, traveling throughout the slums. When did you go there?
I'm half Chinese, so... My dad is from Shanghai, and I've been going there since I was a baby. But my grandma lives there. But yeah, basically when I was like 16, 15, like, and I was getting into like graffiti, like I was already into skating for a while. But once I was into graffiti and shit, you know, I would go to China and I'd just see these, like, China is like Shanghai is like...
Well, they like don't really have graph like that.
Not really. And also it's like a really rapidly developing city. So there was like all these like weird slums and like, you know, lots and like fucking spaces that were just like under construction, like about to be demolished, like just weird. And obviously the, like, from my perspective and like what I came to like know and admire in New York City, and like from like being inspired from like graffiti writers or photographers, whatever, I was like, yo, I really want to like explore this shit. And
didn't you paint there?
Yeah. And I like went and I fucking got some paint, and I would like I would be like, all right, bye grandma, you know what I mean, and like just like wander around these slums and fucking, you know, I would like walk through these like junkyards and like abandoned buildings, and I would just like paint and you know, everyone there was just like, what the fuck is this kid doing? Like I would just get the weirdest looks, because like that's so alien, you know what I mean? It's not like there's not no graffiti there, but it's really not.
Because I went to like I'm part Chinese too, but I don't have no family there anymore. All my family's in Ecuador. But I went and dude, I didn't see anything. But I went to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong and Beijing has a little more of a scene.
I saw Bucket TKO, Mine TWB. I was seeing writers. I was getting pretty amped. Yeah. But I was surprised because I went to like Beijing and Shanghai and I didn't see anything.
Yeah, Shanghai is like really basically like has no graffiti scene. I mean, not none. Shit, like sorry to the writers over there, but yeah, no, it's really it's not like and also like for what it's worth, like I wasn't like getting up. I was just like doing it. I was like fucking doing it on a wall of like a random abandoned. You know,
what are the consequences like? Because you hear rowdy stories.
Well, that's also why I was kind of shook, is because, you know, in theory, if you get caught doing that, I don't know what the fuck exactly the consequences are, but like everything in China, like drugs or anything, they're pretty severe. So, But on the other hand, like, same shit with weed. Like, I was smoking weed out there, and I had skater homies that smoked weed on the regular, and everyone would, you know, back here would be like, yo, isn't that, like, mad sketchy? Mm-hmm. And the truth is that it is. But they're just not, you know, the cops aren't, like, hip to that shit.
There's also way less cops out there.
Yeah. And also, the whole policing attitude is a little different. You know, I mean, they're super authoritarian and, like, extreme and shit, but I didn't really get the sense that cops are, like, serve the purpose. Like in New York, like, they're not, like, out to get the criminal. Like, they're more, you know what I mean? Like they're more patrolling and, like, if there's a crime.
No, I got that vibe from like watching Utah and Ether painting in these Asian countries. They would paint right in front of the cops, and they would show, like, them rolling by and, like,
exactly. And really part of it is just, like, they're ignorant to it. They don't know what, you know, probably they don't even know what weed smells like, you know?
No, they straight up.
Yeah. So I was smoking pretty openly, actually, when I was there, and it was chill. But you know what's crazy is that I went there more recently, like a year ago, and all my friends that smoked weed heavy, and some of them even sold weed, like, most of them stopped, or, like, weed just became not available anymore, which was just, like, so crazy to think about. I'm like, yo, imagine, like, smoking weed your whole life, and then it's just, like, not available anymore because they just cracked down on, like, the dealers and shit in there, or, like, whatever. And yeah, even though you can kind of smoke, like, in the open because cops aren't really, like, looking for it, there's also obviously horror stories of, like, you know, homies selling, like, an ounce of weed and disappears for, like, years or some shit, you know. It's scary out there because it's not, you don't really have the same rights as you do.
I mean, they don't have Instagram, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have Google.
No Instagram. I mean, people, you know, bypass that, but
yeah,
you know, there's no Instagram, there's no fucking Google, and you don't really like, I don't even know if you have, like, a right to a fair trial. Like, it's just like, if you get bagged.
Well, they have a history, you know, like you said, of doing bugged out stuff, like the horror stories, like Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, I mean, think about even right now what's happening in Hong Kong with, you know, I can't imagine how many students have just, like, straight up disappeared like, because of the protests and stuff, and
it might not even be that bugged out.
Yeah.
And they'll still just, like, come through and just openly mop people out.
Yeah. It's, you know,
it puts things into perspective.
You don't have the right there to speak against the government. You don't, you know. So it's definitely, it's pretty bugged out. It's pretty,
yeah, imagine if you get caught painting.
Yeah, which is why I was, you know, I wasn't, like, painting, like, an ill spot. I was just, like, in the back alley.
Yeah, of course.
You know.
Yeah, 'cause, like, if you think about it, writing graffiti is a form of, like, expression, like, freedom of expression. If they don't have, like you said, if you're not allowed to speak up against, like, the authoritarian government, like, graffiti in a way is, like, speaking out against shit.
Exactly. So all that shit ties in together. And, you know, it's funny, I think when I was out there, I was just writing Adam or some shit. Like, I came up with a different tag, like, that I only wrote out there for some reason.
How did you... Obviously, like, you grew up in New York, thriving graph scene where people come to become famous in that world.
Yeah.
When did you first become aware of this as a thing?
I was like, so I was already, you know, I've always been into art and skating, right? I was, you know, aware of graffiti, obviously. Like, I think it was like, honestly, it was when I was, like, fully basically, like, skate rap mode. And then I think definitely a big part of it was being introduced to, like, Hawk and Rat King and those guys. And when I...
You're talking about Rat King, like, the music group?
Yeah.
Not the writer. Oh, Rat Kid, I'm thinking of.
No.
Yeah, Rat King.
Rat King. So my friend, one of the former members was this guy, Hawk. And he wrote... Oh, I shouldn't say what he wrote. But he wrote graffiti, and, you know, I was not as hip to it at the time, but meeting, like, Rat King and Wiki, like, they were more, like, I was in the skating scene, and they were more, like, in the downtown graffiti music artist scene, and it definitely, like inspired me to be a part of that. And You know, they were working with like Ari Markopoulos, like shit like that is what I've discovered, like Ari Markopoulos, or like, you know, they would put me on to like graph documentaries and shit. My homie Arvid definitely was a big part of putting me onto graph. He's the one who like would design all the album artwork for them and shit. And basically we'd like sit around, like watch documentaries, like make zines, that whole type of shit. And it was during that period where I like was like, yo, like graffiti's dope. And but you know, I was toy. I'm you know, I don't really even write.
You know,
right
it's
now.
crazy because right now there's like a wave of it's like a thing, like you skateboard, you write graph kind of thing. I know a lot of skaters who got bagged really fast just because of the method that they were painting. Yeah. And then essentially maybe stopped, which like I don't care. Like if it's not for you, it's not for you. I'm not like, oh, I told you. Yeah. But like Kyoto, dude, Vandal Squad. I'm gonna beep out his name and shit. But like Vandal Squad just came to his crib.
He's the one that called. He's the first. I was the first person he fucking called, bro. Bro, he called me like what to do because the same thing happened to me when I was his age.
Oh, so, Vandal Squad came to your crib.
Yeah, literally same shit happened to me, and I had to like basically walk him through and be like, yo, just like, cause I was like, yo, don't fucking listen to what they're saying and don't sign anything for like, that was, cause I was dumb enough when the first time I got bagged, I was like wasted at like, 5 a.m. I was like 16 probably, and walking home, just recklessly catching tags like every block of the way basically. And I got bagged like I was like almost home, you know what I mean? I was like down the block from the crib and I got bagged. And, I had some like older mentor homies, but I didn't really have, like I was just doing my thing. I just thought it was fun and I didn't really know what the fuck to do, like after getting bagged. And I spent the night in bookings and Vandal Squad called my name. Everyone's waiting to hear your name like in the cell. And I'm just trying to get the fuck out of there. I'm like a kid. I wasn't like shaking but I was like obviously like drunk and like, fuck, I want to get out of here. So they called my name and basically, the games that they play with you, like they're on your side, like, yo, they just want to get like that person or some shit. And they basically like intimidate you and like, not even intimidate, they actually try to make it seem like you're like, they're cool with you or something. They know about graffiti. They're like, oh yeah, like, what you know about like these writers, like, yeah, I took one of them down. You know what I mean? Like the way they talk is like they're the biggest fans out there. Like I remember they're like, I forgot who they, like one of my arresting officers was like, yeah, ACC, like, just like listing all these people. And I was just like, yeah, like, and they basically try to like buddy up with you and make it seem like they're on your side to coerce you into incriminating yourself, basically. And when I was 16, I did that, and I didn't even know it was Vandal Squad. I just thought that they called my name like everyone else to get out of there, and I was still wasted, and they were just like, yo, cooperate with, they were just like, you have to cooperate with us, and I obviously didn't know any better. I didn't know to be like, no, I'm not, I'm talking to my lawyer. They're cops. Like, I just thought I had to like do what they said. And I signed some shit, and basically a few months later, like, same shit. Vandal Squad shows up, boom.
But I don't know how they knew where he lived at. Like, that's kind of bugged out because I don't think he had any prior arrests. So I didn't know how they knew where he lived at. Obviously, he came out of nowhere writing, and he kind of went in, like. And
he was writing his name, and maybe they are lurking on Instagram a little like more heavily than you might imagine. But basically like because I signed whatever I signed and I didn't know any better, basically snitched on myself. They basically like were able to not even catch me in the act, but basically like have all this case against me with all these tags and have photos of all my tags and be like, yo, like you have to turn yourself in, like, and essentially, like, my understanding of it is that they could have all that shit, but if you didn't sign that thing, they can't really prove in court that you did all those tags. So all you got to do is shut up and be like, I'm talking to my lawyer, So I wish I had somebody to tell me that when I was that age. and I ended up doing like, you know, a bunch of community service and shit. And I still rode after that. It's not like I was like, fuck this, like, but I definitely like was like, you know, I was like more focused on skating and like art and stuff. So
yeah, I try to tell like I have this this like younger homie who is like, he's like really good at skating, and you've probably seen it, like people who are really good at skating and then they want to get into graph, and I'm like, but they're like a little bit older, and I'm like, yo, honestly, like your best case scenario would just be like focus on skating, because there's this idea that like you can do both 100%.
Yeah,
but no, you really can't.
Nah, definitely. I mean, it's just like skating or anything, any subculture, like there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, and like the difference between being, you know, toy as fuck and like dope really goes over a lot of people's heads, and it takes years of like developing an eye and like looking at graffiti to like understand like what is dope and what's not.
It's essentially like sacrificing all your time, like relationships, your job, like your sanity, your sleep,
normal life,
your sleep, everything to, you know, having this idea of being like the king of this shit.
Yeah,
it's like a whole community behind it, politics, like it's a whole world.
Politics also it gets really serious. Like when I was talking, you know, a lot of those younger kids started doing graffiti, and you know, a lot of them talk to me about it. Not that I'm like, you know, the ill graffiti writer or anything, but like just because I have a connection to a lot of graffiti writers, and I like just have been following it for so many years and like kind of know about it. And you know, I would tell them, I would be like, yo, I mean, I don't know if you should do this. Like, you know, the people that you look up to in graffiti, like they're not good people.
Exactly.
They're not people you really want to be looking up to. Like, just letting you know, you're gonna get into some dark shit like by partaking in this. I'm like, I'm not gonna stop you. I think it's dope that you guys want to write, but I'm not like necessary. But now that they're doing it anyways, of course I fucking encourage them, and I like try to throw them styles and shit and like whatever. You know?
This old interview with Sems, I believe, he talks about how graffiti like ruined his life. He talks about like his relationships.
Exactly, like that shit will ruin your life. You know,
start to build like an ego. Like once you start really getting up, you're like, oh, I'm the king of this shit. Like who are you to tell me like, you know, you can't even be in a relationship because like the girl will be like, don't go out. You're like, yo, what do you mean don't go out? Like, you know what reputation I have? Like,
or you become a fucking klepto. You're like, oh shit, I'm supposed to steal shit. I'm supposed to steal paint. Like, I'm gonna steal like my homie's fucking watch. You know, it really like bleeds into other parts of your life, and I've experienced that. Even like, I don't want to say any names, but like some like close. I've had falling outs with like close friends that were like my brother and couldn't, you know, just really became kleptomaniac, like would just steal, just didn't know the, like, I'm like, yo bro, you're supposed to steal paint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like not like your homie's shit. Like, and you know, became such a big issue with his ego and his like klepto tendencies that I had to like.
One thing that I'm really hyped about is that, like, out of all the writers we had on this show, the majority, because most of the writers we had, with a few exceptions, are older heads now. Like, they've been in the scene for so long. They've been through, like, everything that we're talking about right now. And they all, like, have a positive message to say about it, and they definitely don't encourage those parts of graph that are just essentially just bullshit, you know? Like, from Nove to Hurt to Charlie, like, all these people jest, like they claw. They're not like, yeah, like if someone goes over you, you have to fuck them up, and then you have to, like, they honestly are trying to give a positive message to the youth. So I think that's mad cool, because if there's anyone you should be listening to when it comes to like this kind of stuff, it's like those heads.
Yeah, exactly.
But previous to us having this platform, everything you'd see, if it was a graph interview, was, you already know, like it was like, I will shoot someone if you go over me, as opposed to we got some of those same heads being like, do not do that because it's going to ruin your life.
I lost maybe 5, 10
3 maybe 10
3 maybe 10 fights in my life. Yeah,
dude, I saw that and I'm like, when I was like 2 years old, I'm like, yo, like, that means that he must have been in so many fights that 10 is a very, very low number.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like a low percentage that it's like a trophy to say that shit, you know?
Yeah.
He's hitting up in front of the bus driver.
Yeah. I know. It's so
I'm like,
fucking...
yo, this dude is crazy, man. Like,
so wild.
I want to be this crazy.
I know. And that's kind of like the message. I was like, yo, like, keep true to your, like, yourselves and you know, because some of those kids are good kids. And I'm like, yo, like, don't really, you know, you do graffiti, but maybe don't idolize, like, you know, some of these people. Like, it's not really necessary.
No, it's definitely, like you said, it's been a pattern with, like, the older dudes coming on, you know, that had this image of violence back in the days, but now they're all about, you know, like, peace and, like, it's not worth it, you know. It's interesting because, like, at the end of the day, it's not like these people know each other. It's, I mean, it's a common theme.
It's all, like, I feel like this keeps coming up, but it's once again, it just goes to show, like, how deep these subcultures get, like, that, you know, you're willing to kill somebody because it feels like the biggest deal in the world. Like, these things and sort of idiosyncrasy, like, these sort of, like, specific shit about, you know, where your tag is, like, who tagged next to you, or, like, who did a trick at your skate spot, or, like, just, like, there's a world of sort of politics behind these subcultures that people don't understand.
Even, like at Love Park, they would focus people's decks. I mean, I get it, the last day and shit, but some of those videos were pretty bugged out.
Yeah.
They just straight up, like, take that shit out of their hand, boom, and like, that's it.
Yeah.
To someone else who doesn't know, like, the significance of that park, it's like...
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people get kicked out of Tompkins. Like, I've seen all that shit. It's, like, it's serious, you know?
Yeah. Yo, what's up with your cooking?
The cooking shit?
How'd you get into cooking?
Cooking, like, I just always loved food. And, naturally, I just, like, became interested in cooking. But, it started with that and me just, like, trying to have dinner. Like, I just was, like, got into it and I wanted to, like, try it. And I would just, like, be like, yo, let's cook dinner. Sort of, also, like, comes from me, like, my upbringing, like, having quite a strong food culture. Like, I grew up in, you know, my dad's Chinese, my mom's, like, New York Jewish, and we didn't grow up in a place where it wasn't like, yo, like, eat TV in front of the dinner. Like, you order what you want. It was very much like home cooked meal. Like, you got to be home for dinner, and I felt that having that sort of upbringing and, like, especially my Chinese side and the importance on, like, community and, like, family and, like, eating together, I felt was, like, lacking in, like, some of our communities. Like, when we'd be out skating, it would just be like, oh, I'm gonna get a sandwich at the deli, like, I'm gonna get a slice of pizza, like, and I would always be the one being like, yo, let's, like, all eat together, like,
let's sit the fuck down and talk mad shit,
exactly,
and eat and have a good time.
So that sort of evolved into me being like, yo, like, let's have a dinner party, you know what I mean? Like, fuck, like, sitting around and, like, smoking weed and, like, drinking beers or some shit. Like, there's something really, like, special about, like, eating together, you know? So
especially if you can prepare the food.
Yeah.
It makes it that much more special.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper. It's more personal.
Yeah.
It's like a win-win.
So I just started, like, nerding out about it. I would, like, just read mad recipes, just, like, you know, try to organize dinner parties. But then, at a certain point, when I was, like, 18, 19, and needed a job, like, I started working in the kitchens.
Oh, dope.
So I worked in a few kitchens. That was, like, a fun, like, I definitely look back on that, like, fondly, even though it was, like, crazy shit. You know, it definitely taught me how to work hard, because you'd be in these environments where, like, you're getting paid, like, $10 an hour, like, the dishwasher's, like, an ex-con, your head chef's, like, bugging out because, like, they don't have their cocaine, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a really crazy environment. Like, you're fucking the waitress and like, the Mexican dude is, like, beefing with, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, like, it's just mad funny. It's, like,
it's a lot.
It's, like, a lot and mad intense. And, like, the more fucked up the kitchen was, like, the crazier and kind of, like, more fun it was. Like, I worked, like, one or two a little more, like, fancy meal prep sort of jobs. And they were valuable to, like, learn, but definitely not as fun as, like, crazy fucking kitchen of just, like, your homies are, like, you know, waiters, and, like, you're drinking, like, the waitress is, like, sneaking drinks and like
just like straight up behind closed doors kitchen corruption.
Dead ass. Like,
bro, the restaurant business is hectic. I was a busboy in this.
Yeah, you'd see like coworkers fucking in the bathroom, and like your boss is like doing coke like in the kitchen like before like going out. It was just like mad funny, you know.
And you're on your feet for like 14
and
hours
dude,
a day.
you're
and
like,
shit.
I'm talking about like. You wake up early, like I'm like 18, partying all night, fucking running around doing graffiti, like whatever. I could still get up early. It was like, Anthony Bourdain's like one of my idols. Like I love that Kitchen Confidential and just like the pride in like being able to like party all night and like fucking still like hold down the line, you know? And that was like something that I kind of romanticized, and I like would just like party all night and fucking wake up just hurt, just like fucked up, like roll into the kitchen, like do my prep shit, fucking tell the head chef to fuck off, like, because she needs like her bag of coke. Be like, go fucking get your coke. I'll like hold this down, and just like the madness was just like, yo, you'd be like in the back there, like getting paid like $10 an hour, like huge vats of boiling water, it burns all of your hands. You know what I mean? Like you're working like a double shift. Like, you work, like, 16 hours in a day. You know, just, like, wild fucking hard work, you know? And not to mention, like, how fucked up the restaurant industry is, like, the people in the front making tips, like, in the cool, fresh air, like, attractive people. Then in the back, you got all the fucking, minorities, like, ex-convicts, drug addict, like it's just
churning away with recycled oil heat.
Yeah, and those
are air in the air.
And when you think about it, like what's more specialized labor? Like obviously working like being a cook is like that's what are people there to do? Eat the food, you know? So it's really the most specialized labor in the restaurant, yet they tend to get paid the least. So but yeah, it definitely taught me like hard work and shit. But yeah, now I don't work in kitchens no more, but since now I just I still like to just do dinner parties, and I still love cooking and shit. And I actually recorded like my first like cooking vlog.
Oh, sick, dude! Is it on YouTube? I want to see.
Not yet, but my friend Manon is making like a little like variety show. So it'll be like a little segment on the show.
So you like commentate while you're cooking or something?
Yeah. It was, and I'm not too comfortable in front of a camera, so I was a little nervous, but we made it work. It's gonna be funny as fuck.
You're just like talking shit, or are you talking about what you're cooking? Or
No, I'm basically talking about what I'm cooking. I'm like, all right, so, but like the way I cook is obviously very like, I don't really have really strict recipes, so I'll just be like, yeah, put some of this shit. Like you basically see it, like, I'm like, taste it. I'm like, if it's too sweet, like, add that. It's just like very improv style. But, yeah, that shit, it's going to be funny for sure.
It reminds me of like John Joseph's videos of him cooking. It's like, just like everything's like spilling all over the place. And at the end of it, somehow he has like this amazing meal.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like that, it ties back into just like my love of like friends, community, That's why I was always like involved with like, curating art shows or like having dinner parties or like.
No,
it's almost like community events.
Yeah.
It's been a part of your thing, and it's funny because
being part of the music scene, being a part of the like all these scenes I've been a part of, like I think, in Tompkins.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
It's just like
it's been
it's all about
involvement.
community, and I also like to draw a line between those communities, like because I've uniquely been able to experience sort of like some different ones, like from music to graffiti and skating, food, art. So I think of it as one, and I think that all those scenes share something in common, which is just like belonging to a subculture, like understanding, like, and having passion for like something that you're interested in. I think it's just something I'm like, you can't be my homie unless you're like, into some like. It's definitely something I look for and I admire in people. Is just people who are passionate, people who are like, and you could be into like whatever, like graffiti or skating or food,
No, it's sick, bro. If only more people had that mindset of like keeping this shit alive,
Yeah, exactly. And it's about the culture, So.
Yo, bro. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Man.
Thank you, man.
No problem.
Peace.